Julian Ross, my boyfriend of 2 years, was just brushing on the last layer of sauce when Chloe Brooks walked right into our backyard. Without asking, she reached out, picked up a freshly sliced rib right off his cutting board, and took a massive bite. "You always know exactly how I like them." "Julian," she murmured, licking her fingers with a playful wink. Before I could even swallow my frustration, a sharp, insistent thought echoed through my mind. "Mom, don't be a pushover this time. If you stay with this jerk, you'll literally stress yourself into an early grave." I froze, staring around the patio in total disbelief. Beside my chair, Barnaby, my 3-year-old terrier mix, was sitting stiffly, baring his teeth directly at Chloe. Was that my dog's voice in my head? Trembling slightly, I looked over at Marcus Vance, Julian's quiet, tall best friend who was leaning against the porch railing. Marcus had cooked his own plate of skewers, and Barnaby was nudging my knee, motioning toward Marcus. "Way to go, Mom. This time you have to end up with Marcus instead. Don't choose that scumbag again." Barnaby's tail thumped against the wooden deck so fast it was practically a blur. "Marcus is ready to step up for love. Mom is the most incredible woman alive. Choose him." I forced my breathing to slow down, scooping the little terrier into my arms. At the exact same time, I reached across the outdoor table, grabbed Marcus's cold, sparkling water, and took a slow, deliberate sip. No wonder Barnaby had barked uncontrollably the very first day he met Julian. My dog remembered our previous life too. In that past life, Julian had once pulled me out of a burning car. Because of that single heroic act, I had forgiven every microaggression, every disrespect, and every boundary he crossed with Chloe. It turned out he was never worth my devotion. But why did Barnaby think Marcus harbored secret feelings for me? Marcus was famously reserved, deeply private, and far too honorable to cross his best friend. When I set the glass down, everyone was staring at me in dead silence. Julian's face darkened instantly. "Clara, don't you have a voice? If you wanted a drink, you could have just asked me, like, why are you taking someone else's personal glass? She's probably just jealous and trying to get a reaction out of you." Chloe laughed, placing her hand casually on Julian's shoulder. "Clara, don't be ridiculous. Julian is like a brother to me. We've shared food and drinks since we were 6 years old. It's totally normal." I looked down at the half-empty glass in my hand. Across the deck, Marcus was watching me, his dark eyes filled with a complex, intense heat. I smiled faintly. "Marcus is my friend too. If you can share everything with your friends, why can't I?" Marcus's ears instantly flushed bright crimson. Barnaby licked my wrist approvingly. I felt a slight pang of guilt for using Marcus as a temporary shield, but his quiet calm was the only anchor keeping me grounded. "You really should go comfort your girlfriend," Chloe cooed, using her thumb to smooth the furrow in Julian's brow. "You're being so harsh. What if you scare her away? I refuse to be called a home wrecker." "Woof!" Barnaby squirmed in my arms, growling softly. "Ugh! Keep that nasty mud away from me," Chloe squealed, retreating dramatically behind Julian. "I'm deathly allergic and terrified of unvetted dogs." That fake woman is lying again. Barnaby's voice resonated in my mind. In our last life, after you passed away, she was the one who abandoned me at the shelter. A cold spike of adrenaline shot through my chest. "Clara Vance, how many times have I told you to get rid of that dog?" Julian snapped, his tone filled with utter disgust. You can never trust a street mutt. He could snap one day and bite someone. He softened his voice slightly, taking a step toward me. Be reasonable. Give him away, and I'll buy you a purebred puppy tomorrow. I gripped Barnaby tighter, my knuckles turning white. I had failed to protect him in our past life. This time, nobody was taking him from me. Mom, drop me down, Barnaby whispered in my head. I never bite good people, only pretenders. I deliberately loosened my hold. Barnaby darted straight toward Chloe, clamped his teeth into the expensive hem of her designer sundress, and yanked down hard. Chloe let out a blood-curdling shriek, throwing her arms around Julian's neck. Let go, bad dog, sit! Julian roared. Barnaby ignored him completely, tugging stubbornly until Marcus stepped forward. Barnaby, come here, Marcus said softly. The terrier immediately released the fabric, trotted over to Marcus, and flopped onto his back with his paws in the air, waiting for belly rubs. Julian's face twisted into a scowl. How on earth did Marcus know my dog's name? After lunch, the four of us packed up for the scheduled weekend camping trip up Mount Crestview. Before I could even reach the passenger side of Julian's SUV, Chloe brushed past my shoulder, popped the front door open, and settled into the leather seat. I froze on the gravel driveway. 3 months ago. Julian had sworn to me that the front passenger seat of his car was reserved exclusively for me. Julian opened his mouth to say something, but Chloe clasped her hands over her chest dramatically. Oh, please don't make me ride in the back near that hair-covered dog, she whined, poking Julian playfully in the ribs. Besides, we haven't hung out proper in weeks. Are you really going to ditch your childhood best friend just because you have a girlfriend now? Seeing the soft, amused grin spreading across Julian's lips, I knew the battle was already lost. Sure enough, he turned to me with an impatient sigh. Clara, why don't you call a rideshare up to the summit? It's really not worth making a scene over a car seat. My chest tightened. Julian, cabs won't transport medium dogs without advanced notice. Don't make this difficult for me. Clara, he warned, his tone dropping an octave. I stood there in silence, clutching Barnaby against my side. Get in. The passenger window of a sleek black truck rolled down, revealing Marcus's sharp jawline. We're all heading to the same campsite, Marcus said, his voice calm and commanding. There's plenty of space in my truck, and Barnaby is more than welcome. He shot Julian a cool, unbothered glance. Don't worry, Julian. I'll take good care of her. Julian looked as if he had just swallowed a lemon. Without another word, I opened Marcus's truck door and climbed inside, Barnaby bouncing excitedly onto the middle console, the entire 40-minute mountain drive. Barnaby's mental narration flooded my thoughts. Look at his ears. Mom. Marcus is blushing. He's planning to confess to you during the sunrise. In our past life, that evil woman kept you so isolated, you never even saw how much he cared. I glanced at Marcus, whose jaw was set in focus as he navigated the winding mountain turns. My cheeks burned so hot, I was certain I looked like a sunburnt mess. When we finally reached the high-altitude campsite, the air was crisp and frigid. I shivered, wrapping my arms around myself as the icy wind cut through my thin sweater. I was about to ask Julian to unlock his trunk so I could grab my winter coat, but Chloe was already hanging off his arm. I'm freezing. Julian, give me your heavy jacket. Right now. Julian unzipped his heavy wool parka, tossing it over her head. Catch. Satisfy your whining. Chloe instantly draped it around herself, then jumped onto Julian's back, playfully pulling his hair. This smells like Clara's vanilla perfume. Take it back. I want the blue fleece jacket you're wearing. Fine. Fine. Take it. Julian chuckled, swapping coats with her right in front of everyone, as their loud, cozy bickering resonated through the clearing. I turned away, swallowing the bitter lump in my throat. Suddenly, a thick, heavy mountain blanket was gently draped over my shoulders. It was Marcus. He adjusted the edges carefully, making sure not to accidentally touch my bare neck or invade my personal space. Standing tall beside me, he spoke loudly enough for Julian to hear. You two keep playing. I've got Clara covered. Julian stormed over, his brows furrowed in genuine irritation. What is wrong with you today, Marcus? Why are you acting so weirdly defensive? Before Marcus could reply, Chloe let out a theatrical gasp and collapsed onto the grass. Ow! My old ankle injury is flaring up again. Julian, carry me to the bench. Julian immediately turned on his heel, running to her side. He scolded her for being dramatic, yet he obediently scooped her into his arms. I let out a cold, bitter laugh. I walked away from the main camp, finding a quiet, rocky ledge overlooking the valley. An hour later, shouts echoed through the dark camp. The meteor shower is starting! Julian pushed through the crowd, finding me sitting alone on the dark ridge. Are you still throwing a tantrum? He asked, trying to sound lighthearted. Chloe and I grew up together. Clara, she's basically family. We came up here so you could take pretty pictures of the stars. You love photography, right? Before we met, I was a freelance photographer building my own portfolio. Julian had pressured me to quit, calling it a distraction from our relationship. Let's take a photo together and post it, I said quietly, watching his face closely. Julian looked down, shuffling his feet. You know, my mother is very traditional. She doesn't like me posting public photos until there's an official engagement. I didn't argue. I simply nodded. Just then, someone called Julian to help set up the generator. He handed me his phone and walked off. Mom, look at her social media. Barnaby whined, pacing in circles. The evil woman just uploaded something. I unlocked his screen, opening the app. Chloe had posted a 9-photo collage. In the center frame, she and Julian were wearing matching oversized hoodies, sitting intimately by the campfire. Julian had already liked it, commenting, anything for my favorite person. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through her profile, page after page of photos of Julian, filled with comments from mutual friends. When are you two finally getting married? Chloe had replied to one. Love is complicated. Don't tease us. I took a clear screenshot of everything and saved it directly to my cloud storage. When Julian returned, he caught me holding his unlocked phone. His expression turned instantly hostile. Didn't your parents teach you basic privacy? Why are you going through my device? Chloe strolled over, sipping hot cocoa from a thermos. Oh, Clara, don't be so insecure. Julian and I are practically brothers. You can't expect him to cut off his best friend just because he's dating you. I looked her dead in the eye. You keep calling yourself his brother, but I don't see a medical record proving a gender transition. Clara Vance, that is enough, Julian shouted, his voice echoing across the silent peak. He caught himself, taking a breath before softening his tone. Look, let's just watch the meteor shower. You're overthinking this whole thing. We'll discuss it tomorrow. I yanked my arm out of his grip and took 3 steps back. Streaks of silver light began cutting through the ink-black night sky. I closed my eyes, making a single, silent wish. I wished for the strength to end this 2-year mistake cleanly. "Mom, look!" Barnaby's anxious thought pierced my focus. "Her hands are inside his jacket." I opened my eyes. Chloe was standing pressed against Julian's side, her hands completely tucked inside the front pockets of his unzipped coat, resting against his waist. "What on earth are you two doing?" I asked, my voice dangerously low. "I'm just cold, Clara." Chloe smirked, pinching Julian's hip. "I thought you said your girlfriend was mature. Why is she constantly making a scene?" Julian laughed, swatting her hand playfully. "You never change, do you?" Then he turned to me with a dismissive wave. "Don't ruin the mood. Clara, be good." He reached out to pat my head as if I were a child. But I pulled away. "What if I shove my hands inside Marcus's clothes right now?" I demanded. "Would you be fine with that?" Julian's smile vanished completely. "Why are you being so rebellious today?" "I'm not your pet," I snapped, my temples throbbing with rage. "Stop telling me to be good!" "Why not try it and see?" Marcus suddenly stepped beside me, took my right hand, and deliberately placed it inside his warm woolen jacket, against his side. My heart hammered against my ribs. I tried to pull back, but his warm, firm fingers held mine gently in place. Julian's face went pale, then flushed with rage. "Clara, take your hands off him right now. Marcus, what the hell is your problem?" "We're just keeping warm." "Julian," Marcus said in a smooth, icy tone. "Don't be a party pooper." Julian glared at us, utterly speechless. I stared at Julian, feeling an overwhelming sense of detachment. How could the man who once risked his life to save me from a wreck turn into someone who repeatedly humiliated me in public? Did he ever love me? Or did he just love having a quiet, compliant partner? When it was time to turn in for the night, I walked toward our shared 2-person tent. Before I could unzip the flap, Chloe linked her arm through Julian's. "Julian, I twisted my ankle earlier. I'm terrified of sleeping alone in the woods. Let's share the large dome tent like we used to as kids." I stopped dead in my tracks. "You're going to sleep in the same tent with her?" Julian looked uncomfortable, glancing between us. "Clara, it's just sleeping. Don't make it weird." Chloe let go of his arm with a dramatic sigh. "Unbelievable. You're seriously ditching a 20-year friendship over a ridiculous misunderstanding. Fine, I'll sleep on the cold ground." "Chloe, wait," Julian called out, turning back to me with irritation. "Clara, if you're going to act this childish, I'll apologize on her behalf. Just go to sleep." I let out a hollow, bitter laugh. "Mom, please break up with him." Barnaby whimpered, pressing his head against my ankles. "In our last life, you let this heartbreak destroy your health. After you were gone, they abandoned me. My leg was broken, and I went blind in the cold. It hurt so much. Mom!" A brutal physical pain slammed into my chest. Tears welled in my eyes, but I forced my jaw tight, refusing to let them fall in front of Julian. "If you two want to play married couple, go right ahead," I said, my voice shaking with absolute certainty. "Julian Cross, sleep with her as many nights as you want. We are completely finished." "Clara, come back here," Julian roared. I turned my back on him and walked straight down the gravel path toward the parked vehicles. The window of Marcus's truck rolled down. "Get in," Marcus said softly. I opened the door, clutching Barnaby tight against my chest. "Yes! Mom!" Barnaby's thoughts cheered wildly inside my head. Escape successful. Upgrade to the handsome backup husband. I choked back a sudden laugh, wiping a stray tear from my cheek. Marcus turned on the high-powered cab heater, carefully angling the vents directly toward my freezing hands, without saying a single word. "You don't have to explain anything tonight," Marcus said gently, shifting the truck into drive. "Just stay warm." In the side mirror, I saw Julian running down the path, shouting my name into the dark night, with Chloe limping dramatically behind him. I didn't look back, not even once. Julian called my phone 4 times before midnight. I let every single call ring out, while Barnaby growled softly at the glowing screen on the dashboard. "Do not answer. Phones are portals for toxic excuses." I burst out laughing, the tension in my shoulders finally beginning to dissolve. Marcus glanced over, a quiet, deeply relieved smile touching his lips, before he refocused on the winding road. The next morning, I didn't send a long, emotional paragraph like the old Clara would have done. I sent one single text message. "We're done. Keep the jacket. Keep Chloe. I am packing my things out of your apartment today." Within 30 seconds, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. I answered on the 3rd ring, keeping my tone icy and detached. "You humiliated me! Clara!" Julian barked, his voice tight with anger. "You got into Marcus's truck in front of everyone. Do you have any idea how bad that makes me look?" "I didn't make you look bad, Julian," I replied calmly. "I just stopped hiding how you treat me. Chloe is just my childhood friend." "Then your friendship requires strict boundaries, professional therapy, and public supervision." He began sputtering about our 2-year history, about how I was throwing away our future over a silly misunderstanding. "I am not asking for your permission, Julian. I am informing you of a fact. Goodbye." I hung up before he could launch into another round of gaslighting. Over the next 3 weeks, Marcus never pushed me for anything. He brought organic dog treats for Barnaby, checked up on my photography portfolio, and helped me relocate my belongings into a charming new studio apartment. One afternoon, he found my professional camera bag tucked away in a closet. He carefully pulled out my high-end lenses, setting them on the dining table. "You have an incredible eye for light," Marcus said, looking through a folder of my old landscape prints. "It's a crime you ever stopped shooting." "Mom, he appreciates your artistic soul," Barnaby observed from the sofa. The other guy only appreciated Chloe's endless drama. Marcus's ears turned bright pink, and he suddenly became intensely interested in a mountain sunset photograph from 3 years ago. "He's blushing again," Barnaby reported with delight. "This man is one sweet sentence away from ring shopping." Predictably, Julian refused to accept reality. A week later, a massive bouquet of orange lilies arrived at my new apartment building. Orange lilies were Chloe's absolute favorite flowers. My favorite had always been white peonies. I rejected the delivery on the spot, sending the driver back down. He bought apology flowers in his side chick's favorite color. Barnaby snorted. That scumbag would get lost inside an empty room. 2 days later, Julian snuck into my building behind another tenant, pounding on my apartment door. I opened it, Marcus, sitting calmly at my kitchen table reviewing contract layouts. Julian's face went purple. "You moved on this fast?" he shouted. "You're already sleeping with my best friend?" "No, Julian," I said cleanly. "I moved on months ago while sitting in your passenger seat. You were just too blind to notice." He rounded on Marcus. "You couldn't wait, could you? You traitorous bastard!" Marcus slowly stood up, tall and unbothered. "You abandoned her one selfish choice at a time. Julian, I'm just no longer pretending not to see it." Julian stood frozen, unable to process the total loss of control, before turning on his heel and walking away. Realizing she was losing her grip, Chloe launched a quiet smear campaign across our mutual social circles. Rumors began circulating that I was mentally unstable, absurdly possessive, and using Marcus out of petty revenge. I didn't make a loud public statement. Instead, I quietly gathered my evidence. I compiled Chloe's Instagram posts, the matching outfit photos, the comment sections where she encouraged romantic rumors, and the clear video clip from the campsite showing her hands inside Julian's coat. Then, Priya, a longtime friend from our circle, called me. "Clara, I am so sorry for ever encouraging those couple jokes between Julian and Chloe. I had no idea she was deliberately manipulating the situation." "It's not your fault," I said softly. "Manipulators rely on people assuming good intentions." Barnaby suddenly growled at the front door, nudging a small wireless security monitor Marcus had installed near the hallway. The screen showed Chloe standing in my building's courtyard, unlatching the pet gate where Barnaby usually played, trying to let him run into the busy street. My blood ran cold. She wanted to frame Barnaby as a dangerous, runaway dog to prove I couldn't manage him. "You wanted to create chaos," I muttered, saving the security footage. "Too bad modern cameras don't lie." The ultimate confrontation occurred at Julian's family dinner, an annual black tie event hosted by his prominent mother, Mrs. Evelyn Cross. Julian had practically begged me to attend, foolishly believing this dinner would serve as a platform to clear the air and force me back into line. I arrived accompanied by Marcus, with Barnaby trotting beside us wearing a dashing black bow tie. "I am dressed for justice," Barnaby declared mentally, "and free appetizers." The moment Chloe spotted me across the marble foyer, she glided over, her voice dripping with artificial sweet sympathy for the gathering crowd. "Clara, I'm so glad you came. I really hope you've stopped being mad at me and Julian. We're truly like siblings." I raised my glass of sparkling water, locking eyes with her. "Then stop dating your brother emotionally in public." A sharp ripple of snickers echoed through the room. Julian's jaw tightened, and he stepped forward, whispering harshly, "Clara, don't be impolite in my mother's home." Instead of replying to him, I reached over, grabbed a skewer off Marcus's plate, took a bite, and drank directly from his water glass, mimicking Chloe's exact behavior from 3 weeks ago. Marcus's neck turned red, but he held his head high. "Chloe does this every single day," I said loudly enough for the whole room to hear. "I'm just following her masterclass in friendship." Chloe turned red. "That's completely different. Julian and I have 20 years of history." "Disrespect feels identical," I countered, "regardless of how long you've been practicing it." Mrs. Evelyn Cross stepped into the center of the room, her eyes cold and sharp. I didn't hesitate. I pulled up the tablet in my bag, connecting it directly to the living room's smart display screen. In clear, high-definition clarity, the screen cycled through Chloe's flirtatious social media captions, the video of her intimate physical contact with Julian under his coat, and finally, the crystal-clear security camera footage of Chloe unlatching the pet gate to endanger Barnaby. Gasps erupting through the room were instant. "You called me possessive," I said to Julian, my voice echoing with terrifying clarity. "Because it was easier than holding her accountable." "Clara, stop this," Julian pleaded, his face drained of all color. "You didn't lose me because Marcus opened a car door," I said, looking Julian dead in the eye. "You lost me because you closed every door I ever stood in front of." Mrs. Evelyn Cross turned to Chloe, her voice lethal. "Is this footage authentic? Chloe?" Chloe began stammering hysterically, trying to burst into tears. "Mrs. Cross, Clara framed me. That mutt is dangerous." Nobody believed a single word. "Please leave my home immediately," Mrs. Cross commanded, pointing toward the entrance. When Chloe tried to grab Julian's arm, he hesitated, pulling back in utter humiliation, realizing she had lost her audience. Chloe fled the house in tears. Julian turned to me, his eyes wide with desperate regret. "Clara, I didn't realize how deeply I was hurting you." "You realized," I whispered. "You just enjoyed being forgiven." He reached for his absolute final card. "I saved your life in that car accident. Clara, doesn't that mean anything to you?" "It meant I owed you gratitude." "Julian," I said firmly. "Not my entire life, not my self-respect." Julian collapsed onto a nearby chair, burying his face in his hands as his own relatives shook their heads in disappointment. "The scumbag has finally encountered consequences," Barnaby noted with supreme satisfaction. "Nature is truly healing." I turned around, took Marcus's hand, and walked out into the cool night air. We drove up to the Mount Crestview overlook, the very spot where the meteor shower had taken place weeks before. The early dawn light was just beginning to paint the horizon in soft shades of gold and pink. "You can say it now," I said softly, looking out over the misty valley. Marcus kept his hands in his pockets, looking more nervous than I had ever seen him. "I have loved you quietly for 3 years. Clara," he admitted, his voice deep and unsteady. "I never said a word because you were with him, and I respected your commitment." He looked down at Barnaby, who was watching him with intense expectation. "I just wanted you to be loved properly, even if it wasn't by me. Mom, if you reject this man..." Barnaby's voice filled my mind. "I am filing for a new owner." I laughed, tears of pure relief warming my eyes. I reached out, took Marcus's hand, and laced my fingers through his. "It was always you, wasn't it?" Marcus pulled me into a gentle, warm embrace, resting his chin against my head. Months passed, the way good months always do, peacefully, smoothly, and without unnecessary drama. My freelance photography business blossomed. I booked my first major corporate event and 3 coastal weddings before the spring arrived. Marcus never once called my passion a waste of time. Instead, he built a custom oak editing desk for my studio and frequently carried my heavy tripod bags without ever being asked. Barnaby grew plump, happy, and spent his evenings sleeping soundly at the foot of our bed, finally free from his past life nightmares. Chloe disappeared from our social circle entirely, her reputation ruined by the undeniable video evidence of her cruelty. Building management officially banned her from the premises, and her old friends quietly removed her from group chats. Julian lingered on the edges of our old social world, a shadow of his former self. The weight of that public exposure followed him everywhere. I saw him one final time 6 months later at a quiet downtown coffee shop. He looked thinner, haggard, like a man who had finally run out of excuses to convince himself he was the victim. "Clara," he called out softly, his voice hesitant, broken. I didn't stop walking. Barnaby, trotting happily beside me on his red leash, didn't even bother to glance back or bark. There was nothing left in Julian worth our energy. In my past life, I mistook being saved once for being loved forever. In this life, I learned the true difference. Julian saved my life one time in a burning car. Marcus helped me build a life worth living every single day.